What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabro, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well out there.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, but we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what you been playing?
So yeah, I've finally kind of scaled back. I feel like I've been playing too much and nothing at the same time. So finally scaled back some stuff. I finally, on PlayStation, on PS5, I finally went back to Horizon Forbidden West. I know it's
Awesome.
a game that I've been wanting to go back to. It's a game that obviously purchased day one, but then a couple days later, Elden Ring just completely absorbed my life. But finally going back to it after a bunch of patches and things like that I knew there were some issues. And it's weird going back, we're a few months now, sort of away from the discord of Horizon versus Elden Ring and everything like that, and I'm being able to play it as what I want it to be, just Horizon. And what a fantastic game. I forgot how great the game is. There is just that level of polish that you don't find in other games. Specifically, if you go back and look at Elden Ring isn't the most pretty game to look at. There's a lot of small issues and dated some assets and things like that. So to play a game that is so just freshly, controls just so tight, and just the movement is just so much smoother, and a game that I can enjoy without having to be like, every time I turn over a rock, there's something that's gonna insta kill me. So it's really fun. We spoke a lot about it. I know you played a lot more of it, but I'm finally excited to kind of just give it the time and the respect it needed, which I think is what many people need to do. I know there was just so much discourse over the, how much is a sequel and how much is the DLC, and I don't want to get into any of that. I think Forbidden West, from trying to catch up on everything that I needed to continue it, is just going to be a standout game, and I know it's going to quickly rise back into the good graces of my my top 10 for the year. It's one of the more experienced games I want to play this year. A lot of familiar stuff to it, and there's that cringy hologram gentleman that just seems like a YouTuber who keeps popping up constantly. Whatever his name was, I don't even remember, but he's super annoying. But besides that, the game's really solid. Obviously, a big part of just before I jump into the big one I played, dabbled again into Fortnite. A lot of people have been, including you, been like, yeah, jumping into Fortnite a little bit here or there. Finally, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead, do it. I had V-Bucks sitting there, so I bought the Battle Pass. Grinding through that because I hope to get Vader. I think if he's,
wow.
I don't know if he's. I know he's like the last thing
Yeah.
unlock in that pass, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go for it. I think I'm pretty far. I haven't spent any of the stars, so I don't even know how much, because I didn't get the stars to purchase the blocks, and then you can get through it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to. I haven't even calculated how much I need or how far I need to go to get to the Vader, but hopefully I get there, because I hate buying the battle passes and not even getting, I guess, my money's worth in a sense. But obviously, to no surprise, the big game I've been playing, I guess not a big game, but the game I've been spending a lot of time with, Sonic Origins, finally came out. Happy birthday, 31st birthday to Sonic, came out. And I know there's been some weird stuff going on with it, so just to quickly touch on, it's great to finally have a more modern way to play these games. We haven't gotten a Sonic big collection in a long time. It seems that they usually do these Sonic Genesis collections, and there's all these Sega Genesis collections, and they usually put Sonic 2, 1 and 2 on there. As much as I would have liked sort of almost even like a port of Sonic Mega Collection Plus, which I think is pretty much almost the definitive Sonic collection. I know there's a lot of issues with certain licensing and things like that. But to have the core, I guess, it's always been 4, well, technically, I guess 5 if you split 3 and Knuckles games all in one package is really nice. I think aesthetically it's really nice. The menus are really crispy. I think it's awesome. And I didn't realize this from the promotional stuff they were doing, that they added cutscenes. There's pretty much a beginning and an ending cutscene to every game that mechanically connects them all. And that's I think cool. That is a great, the final cutscene to 2 obviously leads into the beginning cutscene of 3, and and 3 and Knuckles because it's a combined package. I think it's really awesome that they did that. I think that's really cool to have this sort of mechanical storyline connecting these games, even though we've always seen it that way. I think there is certain issues with the emulation. I know some of the stuff has come out afterwards. Some of the companies and workers who've been working on the game sort of come out and talking about a little bit kind of crunching and patching, and how some of this stuff wasn't supposed to be in a bundle, and that's fair. I don't have I'm mixed here because I've played mainly obviously on my Steam Deck. I thought it was the smartest place to play it, and on Steam Deck I've had no issues. I played today finally on my PC using cloud save and everything, and I started to see a lot of what people had issues with when it's blown up on the TV. And my PC, I have I think a 27-inch screen, so it's not something wide. The images are very stretched, blurred. It's not like optimized, and you don't have a lot of control over the filters and things we've seen in other classic games. When you think like maybe like the Nintendo Online or something we're actually going to get into a little bit later, the PS Plus, the way that's doing it, those games look really nice when they're done because they're upscaled properly. The frame rates and the actual frame filters and everything like that is done. This game doesn't have that, at least not yet. So while they look good on tiny screens like the Steam Deck, when it's blown up on a bigger screen, you're having awkward black bars on top of the borders that the games have, and there's maybe some stuff you have to sort of maybe even tweak to get them looking properly. I see people's issue with that. It's not the biggest deal because I do play these games so often. Even to the point where sometimes I hook up my original Genesis to play it. So I'm not completely heartbroken over graphical sort of looks to it. But I do have sort of issues with some of the tweaking they've done in it. I don't know what version of these games they're emulating or using to work. I think I've played these games a lot, which is no surprise. So I can feel when things are off. There's weird slowdowns. There's weird mechanics. Certain enemies, like let's say an enemy explodes, in my brain I know how many frames and bounces it would take to disappear, and it's all been, not all, but just random parts have been slowed. So I'm running into enemies that should have died. Sonic's just getting out of his ball form when he's not supposed to be, and it's all just like sort of off. it's all just slightly off. And I know it stands out mainly with Sonic, the first Sonic, and Sonic 3 Knuckles, because the issue with the first Sonic, if you remember the original Sonic, you couldn't like push down and spin and wind up and shoot. That's not something that you could do in the original Sonic. If you were running, you could push down and you would wind into a ball. But this is one of the versions that they did that you could do that. So you can hold down and push A and you'll wind up like you do in every other Sonic game. And that kind of throws off the pacing of it because you're not supposed to be able to do that. I also think because they went backwards and added that you can play Tails and Knuckles in almost any of the games, which is really cool. You can feel like just they've messed with the formula just enough to bother you. Like it's so weird. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's a combined package. I wish they would have kept them separate. You may have been able to avoid some of these issues. Is where a lot of the tweaking has been done, and I know we finally actually got confirmation, which I thought it was a full blown story that we all knew. Michael Jackson did help compose some music in Sonic 3, which has actually been kind of an issue why that game hasn't been coming out. Mr. Naka actually just tweeted it out. I think it was the day of launch about it that it all kind of came out. So I'm not really that heartbroken about how the soundtrack is a little bit different. I understood that issue. It's also not something, if you obviously listen to it side by side, you can tell, and there's people who are purists. Go track down an original copy of Sonic 3 then. So that's, I'm not gonna get into too much, but I feel like when they went in there to do that, I'm not a technical guy, when they went in there to change whether it was music or whatever assets it was, a lot of stuff just kind of went under. I'm not sure, it's like you opened it and then completely, when you put it back together, you didn't sync it right. There's parts where you have certain shields and then you touch water and the game just doesn't recognize what to do with it, because there's like, if you have the fire shield in Sonic 3, and you've played these games before obviously, if you have the fire shield Sonic 3 and if you touch the water, it usually would dissipate depending on which version you're playing. Sometimes this collection just feels like it doesn't know what to do, so all the water will disappear, but you'll still be in water, different things like that. I've had the electricity shield and then run through waterfalls, and some reason it connects even though it shouldn't, and all the water just turns white, so then I'm just Sonic running through a white screen. And some of the stuff fixes when I just quick restart, or I'll purposely die and I can go through it again and it doesn't have it. But it's just like these weird glitches from games that are almost 30 years old now and been ported before without these problems. And I understand this is supposed to be, they went under the hood to tweak some of this stuff, but it's like, how much did you need to do some of this stuff that you almost broke certain parts of the game? Again, not completely unplayable. I do think the price point's a little sturdy. I know there's like a deluxe version that's some odd points. I think there's just a lot of little things that don't make sense. There's also the museum mode, I guess, where you, of course, unlock artwork and musics and stuff like that. And you're supposed to get these coins, they call them. They're like star coins. Throughout the game, doing different missions to unlock these things. I don't know why they did this, but when you go into Sonic 2, a famous thing is you do the debug mode, correct? Yeah. In the debug mode, you can just spawn these coins. So you can just go in level 1, spawn the coins, get a couple hundred of them, go to the museum, and completely unlock them. Popping trophies and everything. So it's really weird that it's such an oversight, because that's something added. So not only did they add it to the game, they added it to the core of the game that even the debug recognizes it. So it's super weird, super weird stuff that they did here. All in all, if you're looking to just play the core Sonic games, especially CD, because CD is a game that I usually always skip, this is a fun package to go through, especially if you catch it on a sale, or if you're just a diehard. Obviously, I had it pre-purchased. There is better ways to play some of these games, but I think if you don't really have the kinetic sort of muscle memory of these games, I think you'll have a good time playing through them. The cutscenes are, really well animated. They're short, but it's cool to see that extra step and care. It's a nice little package. I know they were trying to hit the anniversary date, and it's obvious that the game just needed to be worked on a little bit more. And I'm sure with a couple of patches, I don't think anything that's in the game is completely unfixable. I think a lot of it will be fine. I just think it's weird to do this big celebration and kind of just sort of handle it so poorly, unfortunately. So, it's there. It's the core Sonic games when you come to it. It's fun to see some of these extra, nooks and fun little additions to it. Again, playing Knuckles in Sonic 1 is not something I've ever done before. You've always been able to do the Link and play Knuckles in Sonic 2, but playing as Tails and Knuckles in Sonic 1 is weird, because that's something I've never played even through mods or anything like that. I've just never really thought about that. But it's a nice tight package to play these core games, especially to keep them moving forward. I think, again, there's some things that I just wish they would have added some other bonuses for that hefty price of, I think it's almost $40 for these games, and these aren't from the ground up remakes. So all in all, I think it's a solid package. I think you guys can wait. I think anyone can wait. I kind of wish I waited. I couldn't help myself. Me being me, I couldn't help myself. But it's a solid package. That's all I've really been up to. What about you? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so obviously predominantly Steam Deck still. And yeah, Sonic is one thing that I've kind of sat on a little bit. For some reason, I just had the feeling in my loins. I was like, wait a little bit. Like, let's just see it roll out and just see how it is. And I was going to buy it on PC to play on Steam Deck and everything. And I just, obviously, all the first stories I saw were, people experiencing some issues. I still plan on getting it, but it's something I'm probably going to let them iron out the bugs, maybe get the price down, get down a little bit before I jump into it. Because, again, it would be one thing if these were games that were never compiled before, or maybe they were compiled so long ago. Like, once upon a time, having Castlevania on newer consoles was kind of an annoying thing. So when the Castlevania collection came out, that was kind of a big deal. Sonic has been compiled so many, and I own so many Sonic collections that I was like, well, if I need to wait like a month or anything like that, that's no big deal for me. I mean, those games, I have multiple consoles that I could play this on. I could play this on Steam Deck if I wanted to right now. It wouldn't be the exact same versions of Sonic, but if I have the hankering for Sonic in the meantime, I can do that. And so I was like, I'll just hold off on that. I've been playing the hell out of Zero Mission on Steam Deck. And now, full transparency, for anybody who knows anything about Metroid and Nintendo IP in general, is that they've done like a piss poor job making this game available. It was on, I believe, the Wii Virtual Console, and then I think it was playable on Wii U as well. But those were the only real ways you could do it. The Ambassador program only got Fusion, and again, that's not viable to anybody who got onto 3DS after that point. And other than picking up the original cartridge, which was really expensive, there's no real way to go ahead and play Zero Mission. It's not in any collections. It's not on Switch. It's not on none of those things. So I was like, I want to play that on Steam Deck, and I've been playing the hell out of that. I'm right up to Mother Brain, and I'm just having a great time with it. I've wanted to play this game for years. And it's just been a while now. I was always holding out that I'd be able to like find a cart somewhere, but it's just as time progresses, it becomes less and less likely because the price is only going up. So I was like, that's probably going to be it. So I'm probably just going to be happy with my Steam Deck version, and been playing the hell out of that, having a great time. It's astounding to me how so many years has passed. I've gotten much better at games, and I still have so much trouble with Mother Brain. It's just crazy to me. Like, I was sitting there just dying fighting Mother Brain, and again, it's not that insane of a boss fight, but there's something about it that I just die. And I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, have I really not made any progress since I was like 12? Like, for real? Like, it's crazy. But the game is still amazing. It still holds together great. It's still probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite. Been playing that. Been playing Bloodborne again. Re-downloaded that. I already had it, but I saw it there because of the PS Plus revamp premium version, which we'll talk about later. And I just had the hankering to play Bloodborne again. And funnily enough, it was mostly to test a theory, which was now after playing, 40, 50 some odd hours of Elden Ring, has my Soulsborne skills gotten even like a percentage better? Answer is yes, they have gotten a lot better. But am I still getting washed in Bloodborne? Absolutely. Like, I'm still getting like destroyed. So I would still not even venture to say I'm even remotely good at it. But I'm a lot better than I used to be. So having a great time with Bloodborne very early in it. I'm still in kind of like Central Yharnam, so I haven't really even gotten farther than that. But I'm just kind of messing around, figuring out the map, figuring out the mechanics. It's been so long that I really forgot completely like all the mechanics and all the systems, so I'm still kind of relearning them, and finding good gear and kind of like exploring the map in kind of small little chunks, trying to get a little farther. Okay, what's around this corner? Oh, all right, a bunch of wolves that killed me. That's fun. So that's usually how I play Bloodborne. Sometimes I discover things by just like hauling it in one direction. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to run past these guys and see if I can find anything. And a lot of times it ends in my death, but it's fun to explore. So yeah, Bloodborne still runs amazingly. It makes me really wish that there was some kind of like 60 FPS kind of PS5 version of this game. Because, it runs and looks great, but like I just feel like it could look and run a lot better if they played with it a little bit more. So I hope one day that we get kind of like a current gen version of that maybe looks and runs a little better, get that 60 FPS on it. And then lastly, I picked up Persona 4 on sale finally for Steam Deck. It went on sale during the Steam sale for I think like $15 or something like that. And with the other Persona games coming, I was like, this is actually a pretty solid price for it already. That was really all it was. They had it for $20 there usually, and I was like, I just want it to come down a little bit more. I feel like it will eventually, and it did. And so I'm very early in it, maybe like 15 minutes or something like that. But I just wanted to kind of see how it runs. And yeah, it runs and looks great. I bumped into one little issue where I was having the blackout cutscene thing, surprisingly enough. But what I did was I just forced, the compatibility mode, Proton experimental thing. I just did that, and then it worked completely fine. So yeah, no, the game runs, looks great. I don't know if I'm gonna do like a full playthrough of it, but I'm going to give it a shot and kind of go until I lose interest, I guess. It's been a really long time. The last time I played it again was on Vita years ago, so it's been a really long time since I played Persona 4, so I'm excited to kind of revisit that world and experience it on handheld, which is the way that I've pretty much wanted to, because I've always wanted to play Persona 4 like prettier, but there's something about Personas where I just prefer handheld a lot more, and I played all of them but 5 that way. Obviously, the first 2 on PSP, and 3 as well, 4 on Vita. And then 5 made the jump to console, which was great, but I always wanted to experience like all these games handheld. So with 4 and 5 coming eventually, which again we'll talk about, or 3 and 5 coming to handheld, that's going to be a lot better. And so yeah, that's pretty much been it to report. Like obviously, all the rest of the time I've been gaming has been either Fortnite or GTA 5. We don't talk about GTA 5. We could leave that alone. But yeah, it's just you know how I am. And then, yeah, Fortnite, I've been playing pretty much daily. I play a couple matches here and there. Yeah, the Battle Pass thing it's actually really worth the money if you put in the time, because there's lots of cool things you can upgrade. And you could actually pay pretty close to the price that you paid for the Battle Pass just by unlocking the V-Bucks in the Battle Pass. And you can get lots of cool like different skins and stuff like that. So right now, I actually was really excited because they had this little Naruto collab that they're doing right now, and I was able to buy. Oh yeah, I think it still might be happening. So if you log in today, you might still be able to get there. They have Itachi, they have Orochimaru, Gaara, Hinata, and then they have Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura, and Kakashi. So those I think are all the characters so far. They have like a cool creator mode where you can actually run around a small version of the Hidden Leaf Village. And so it's crazy to kind of be doing like a literal Naruto run through a Naruto area dressed as Hinata, but like doing like the Dougie. Like I'm like, what? This is such a weird game. Like it's just it's so nuts. But yeah, no, I've been playing that daily, and that's been kind of filling in the rest of the time. I only do a couple matches a day because it's still like I love it, but I wouldn't say it's like I'm not a multiplayer guy still, so I get kind of burned out on that. So I'm like, all right, that's enough getting my like face shot in. But the no build mode is still like such a lifesaver. Like I at this point, I have zero interest in the whole building stuff, and with them taking that away, it's pretty much made Fortnite be the battle royale game that I've kind of always wanted it to be, but I just didn't want to fight people in condominiums constantly and building skyscrapers every time I encounter someone. Like it was just annoying as hell. So yeah, that was pretty much everything I've been playing.
Oh yes, a solid choice. Again, we're in a sort of a lull out there right now. There's no big releases, and I kind of enjoy that because I'm finally getting into stuff. I have actually notes in my phone about these games that I bought almost on day one, put a bunch of hours in, and just haven't gone back to. I still have Dying Light is on there. Dying Light 2 is on my list. Ghostwire Tokyo. I have a list of games, so hopefully we get to get through them before some big ones announced. We'll see, because apparently this upcoming week may be full of announcements, but we'll see. But
yeah, I was thinking, what's the next big game that I think we're waiting for? I know Saints Row is in August. Whether or not that's a big game is kind of up for debate. Like whether you care or not.
Yeah, that's it'll be a big game for us. I know we'll probably talk about a lot of it. I don't think we have anything. I think mainly this week there's a lot of rumors and leaks that this week's gonna have some announcements with some dates finally. So
Xenoblade, right? I think that's a thing.
Who knows?
Yeah, Xenoblade for some people I know is a big deal. I think that is Nintendo's next big offering, because I think that's coming before Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken. So we're in a big lull right now.
Yeah, so again, it's fine because I feel less bad playing a whole bunch of
nonsense,
Sonic and Fortnite, so it'll be a good time. But we'll get into the first story, which is stuff I was losing my mind about. I thought this was really cool. But on June 16th, we got a Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary stream with a few different announcements. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII's 25th anniversary was a big deal. Final Fantasy VII is, again, for many people, one of the best Final Fantasy. Their only Final Fantasy, and we've been in the sort of Final Fantasy VII sort of comeback, even though it's like never really left. So the first thing they announced, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the Final Fantasy Remake Part 2. So it's not being called that. It's actually called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. One big thing I'm happy is they finally got their messaging across that this is the second part in the trilogy. For a lot of times, a lot of us assumed this remake saga they're going through with Final Fantasy VII would be 3 parts, especially when you look at what they did for Part 1. So it's awesome that it's finally just kind of confirmed. Yes, this will be a 3-part trilogy, so we're not going to be playing Final Fantasy VII for 10, 15 years, like many people were nervous about. Really awesome. From the trailer we saw, obviously the Rebirth and the themes of the first one is continuing, where they're changing a lot of things. It looks like the core story is there, but a lot of things are changed. We're not going to get too far into it because that's a weird spoilery territory. Also, we don't know what is actually going to be happening. I think that's really awesome. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. So this is a sort of remaster, retouch up of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, which is the prequel to Final Fantasy VII. Really awesome to see this coming back. Something I actually didn't expect. I thought that this stuff was going to be kind of folded in to this years-long Final Fantasy VII saga. But it'll be awesome to do that. That's actually out this year. So that'll be really cool to jump into. So that's something we're looking forward to this year. Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, which is the final package of the Final Fantasy Remake, coming to Steam. This came to Epic, I want to say, about a year ago. Coming to Steam, I also liked a lot, and I know we're kind of in minority because we have ours. I think it was awesome to see right in the trailer, Steam Deck verified, day one. I have not played it on Steam Deck. I'm very close to wanting to buy it. But to buy this game for maybe, I think, the third time just to run it handheld, it's like $50 on sale right now. It's kind of steep to replay a game that I've already played, I think, twice and paid, I think, twice. But it's there for the people who are there's a lot of people who just completely stay off Epic Games. I think more importantly, it being on Steam means it's on Steam Deck, which I think is great because maybe one day I'll play it on there. Final Fantasy VII, The First Soldier, which is the Battle Royale mobile game. They showed a bunch of Season 3 stuff. I'm not really too interested, mainly because that game is not anywhere else besides mobile, and I don't want to play that game with touchscreens. I did try to play it, but there's a lot of buttons, and it's all digital analog and touchscreen stuff, so I don't want to play it that way. But a lot of cool stuff. It is something I wish was at least ported to PC or one of the consoles or for just to try it out. Then we saw more looks at Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which is that weird sort of chibi remake of all Final Fantasy stuff. They were kind of just hodgepodging it all together. Again, something I'm not too interested because it's focusing more on mobile stuff. And then they ended it off showing a bunch of upcoming Final Fantasy VII merch, which was a lot of it looks really cool, a lot of really awesome stuff. So I think this was a nice, tight stream for Final Fantasy VII. It gave us what we needed, gave us some unexpected stuff. I'm really happy for a lot of this stuff. Couple weird things, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion has the logo for Xbox, so that is coming to Xbox. Though Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth still not shown. It's not Remake's not on Xbox, but Rebirth also showed only the PS5 symbol, so that's gonna be a PS5 only game, or at least timed exclusive. But you're going to get the prequel on there, so it's really weird. Really weird. Don't know what's going on with that stuff, but for us at least, we're getting more of our Final Fantasy stuff. I think it all looked really great. What did you think of this stream?
Yeah, I guess I can go point by point. For 7 Rebirth, that's pretty exciting. Obviously, everybody's super anticipating it, and so it looks like we're going to be able to get that next year. The second in trilogy thing, I think, is super interesting. The trilogy made a ton of sense just from kind of like a release standpoint in terms of having kind of this sub-franchise, clean 3 games to adapt all that material. I guess the issue with it is, and without getting into crazy spoiler territory, is for anybody who has played the original Final Fantasy VII, how small a section Midgar actually is. It's not even it's barely even a quarter of the game. And the fact that there is everything after that point to divide into 2 games is pretty crazy, because that means either they're not going to adapt everything as it was in the original one, and then either some things are going to get cut out or minimized or whatever, or they're not going to maintain the same pace that Midgar had. Because again, Midgar, they expanded the hell out of it. They added all these different stuff, and they made these little areas that you pass through really quick have their own dedicated quest lines and all these new characters, and so they really fluffed it up and made it's its own game. But in the original, what you do in Midgar, you do in several places. There are several spots in the game that are in the original game are just as robust, so just as many little things to do and stuff like that. So either they're going to change the pace up significantly, and they're going to maybe rapid fire a little bit through the rest, or some things are not going to make the cut, because there's just no way that they keep this pace and adapt everything in 3 games. There's just no way. That's why when we had that initial discussion, I was like, well, at the pace that they're going now, it would take somewhere between 5 and 6 games to actually adapt everything. Because again, you have to keep in mind, like, there's, like, I wouldn't say half, but a good chunk of the cast of Final Fantasy VII hasn't been introduced yet. Like, that's how early on we are. Like, the cast is not even complete yet, let alone the actual places you have to go. The actual storyline of Final Fantasy VII has technically not began yet. Like, actually what that game is about, like, it hasn't really kicked off quite yet. The main antagonists and where they come from and all the inner workings and the systems, like, haven't really established. Midgar is really kind of just like the opening of, like, the kind of stage, setting the stage for everything, and then you kind of go from there. So in many ways, like, it starts out as kind of like a little prologue into the actual Final Fantasy VII experience, and that is the first game here. So that's why I'm, like, a little bit confused and really curious to see how the rest of these go. So either these games are going to be a lot longer, maybe, that's my guess, is maybe because the first one was, it takes you anywhere from 20 to 30 hours typically. Maybe they go back into, like, 50-60 hour territory. It's possible. It wouldn't be uncharted territory for a Final Fantasy game to go that long. They've done it before. But yeah, that's just my guess, is maybe some of these games are just going to be a little bit longer. I doubt they're going to cut anything out, because if anything, they've been showing that they're adding things in. And again, not getting into spoiler territory, but there's entire characters whose fates are completely changed in this remake. There's entire quest lines that kind of fill out different tiny things, and you get to appreciate the characters a lot more. You get background on different characters who kind of, at one point, were just kind of, they were here, they died, and that was it. But now they kind of have, they put some weight behind it. And so I would imagine that is going to be their kind of operating philosophy going forward, where they're going to be filling out, not taking away. And so if they're going to fill out the rest of this game, my guess is these games are just going to be long as hell, most likely. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm really, really, really excited about it. Crisis Core is really awesome, seeing just Zack again in high resolution. I was a really big fan of Crisis Core, but it's one of the few games that I really loved playing that I haven't revisited a single time, because I don't have it on PSP and it's not really available anywhere else. It may have been released digitally back in the day. I don't remember 100%. But likely no. I think it was just and I think you can do some things if you wanted to play it on your Vita, but generally speaking, it's been pretty inaccessible since those days. So I haven't played it in many, many, many years. So I'm really excited to be able to jump back into that, and it seems like that's something we're going to get sooner rather than later, as opposed to Rebirth. So that's going to be an excellent thing to kind of tide you over. Because you're going to be getting some Final Fantasy VII, and it looks, at least, you could tell that maybe the scale is maybe not as robust as what they did with the original remake. Like, some of the battle animations looked great, but, like, you could tell, like, okay, this is maybe a smaller scale venture than the other ones. But overall, it looks really good, plays amazing from what I'm seeing, and I'm really excited to jump back into that and see also how literal of a translation it is from the original title, because again, they've made some, I'm assuming this is going to tie into their general kind of Final Fantasy VII remake franchise, sub-franchise, whatever, and so I'm curious to see how the changes that they made in Final Fantasy VII, is there any bleed effect into their remake of Crisis Core? There might be, there might not be, we'll see. Again, for anybody who doesn't know, Crisis Core does take place beforehand, so you don't necessarily you're not necessarily bogged down with any narrative decisions you made in the story after the fact. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Remake integrated on Steam is really awesome. I would love to play this on Steam Deck, but I'm in the same boat as you. I just don't want to buy this again. Because, I just paid a little bit of money to get that upgraded to integrate on my PS5, and I bought it originally, and I just don't want to buy it again. If it goes cheap enough, like if I ever see it for like a $19.99, I'll probably pick it up that way, because at some point, my guess is I'm going to want to replay 7 Remake again before Remake 2 comes out, or Rebirth. And I'd much rather replay it on a Steam Deck than my PS5 personally. Just because, you know, like when it comes to replays, a lot of times I'm just trying to re-experience that world, get familiar with that story again, and then kind of amp myself up. So I'm not really super concerned about the crazy graphical improvements and stuff like that. So the Steam Deck version, I'm sure, runs amazingly. Don't care about the first soldier. To me, like, I mean, I'm of two minds. Like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool that it looks, I mean, it's a fully playable, semi-open battle royale phone game, so I'm like, that's cool, but it also kind of looks terrible to me, no offense. So I'm cool. Ever Crisis is actually really interesting to me, because it's kind of like this downscaled remake with like animations from 7 remake, but the regular game is kind of cleaned up assets. It's interesting. I'm intrigued by it. I kind of want to jump into that because I'm like super interested in seeing those kind of battle animations later in the game, like seeing those late Final Fantasy VII moments with these new animations, theoretically many years before Remake 3 comes out, when it's actually going to be adapting those things. So I'm like curious just to see how those late game things actually look in this remake. So I have my eye on Ever Crisis, but it's a weird one for me. Like I'm like, okay, so the pixel remasters are for the people who like are super into like the older stuff. 7 didn't get the pixel remaster treatment, obviously, because again, it's not a pixel game. And so in many ways, that's kind of like the option that we have for 7 here. So it's for fans of the original, but like it's not a full revamp. So like people who jumped in and remake might not want to jump into this one. So this is a weird one. And then the upcoming merch, I ain't buying none of that. That stuff is probably crazy expensive, most likely. Yeah. Even though they had some really cool stuff. That I'm not going to be able to afford to import or none of that stuff. But yeah, overall, a very good showing. I think this was a great example of how you do it when you are doing a dedicated show to like a specific franchise or something like that. And I think this is like, you know, coming out with a bang. Like we had something not too long ago. We had Sonic Central, which I thought was a solid showing, but certainly only for, you know, the hardcore Sonic fans. Where this one is like a perfect example of like, hey, if you have a franchise that's beloved enough, like you can do a dedicated show, and if you come with a big enough of a bang, like you can really kind of justify your own time. And so shout out to Square for being able to pull this off, and they, you know, I think they really kind of held it close to their chest to be able to dump all this at once, because these are some major announcements, and I didn't really feel at any point that my time was being wasted. So yeah, shout out to them. Great show.
Yeah, it was really well paced. I think it was like, I was there, I watched it, it was over, and I was like, really nice. So they really knew what to do, especially in a world where we're like past this no E3, yes E3, Summer Games Fest, and it's like this weird overarching thing. It's nice to see. I think Capcom did theirs. I don't think we discussed it, but Capcom did theirs, where they didn't show too much, but it was, again, in and out, nice, solid showing. So it's exciting to see it like that, and I just hope we get more of that. And we're gonna get to it, unless like the Xbox Showcase, but we're not gonna jump to that just yet.
Yeah, it's almost like, and call me old, but in this post E3 world, you know, it's funny, as like back when E3 was around, as frustrating as they could be sometimes, you know, it's like when they're gone, like sometimes you miss them a little bit, and I really do miss having that kind of schedule where it's like, okay, Xbox is going on at 4, and they're going on at 8, and EA and Ubisoft, and everybody having these dedicated shows, and that being kind of some bigger experience, as opposed to this kind of like, things are very open right now. And so, you know, call me old, but yeah, I'm a sucker for these kind of like in and out shows, these presentations. I like that kind of stuff. And, you know, without the E3 to kind of wrangle them all in, we're in a weird position where like some people are going and then like some people are not. You know what I mean? Like I haven't really heard anything from like Ubisoft, and I would imagine we're gonna get some Ubisoft Connect thing at some point. But it's weird to not be able to hear from everybody. You know, like I want my Devolver Digital. You know what I mean? Like so, and Summer Game Fest is cool, but I don't think anybody feels that is like subbing in for E3. I think that was always something that was kind of its own thing. He was certainly coming for it. Now he's going to have an in-person event. That's, I think, when you might be able to make the transition to actually being an E3 competitor. But for right now, it's kind of like this cool, it's like a festival. It reminds me of kind of like the Coachella of games. Like it's all these different little tiny things going on for long periods of time, but to me, who's like, a boomer who just wants to sit down, give me a 40-minute hour conference, and then I walk away. Like, Summer Game Fest is just super not for me. So yeah, I like when they do that. But yeah,
it's just too loose of a structure.
Yeah. Again, we're old. I think we like the uniformity of like the old style of kind of having that fixed, like, you're going on at 6, you're going on at 8. Where now it's kind of like this weird thing where it's like people drop information all over the place. Like, Nintendo still has their Nintendo Direct thing, but some people are like, oh, we're gonna be dropping on this day, and you're gonna see us at this conference, and we're gonna be at this conference. I don't like it. Not back in my day. But yeah, so the next story is actually a pretty big one. I've been pretty excited to talk about. Finally, the all-new and revamped PlayStation Plus has launched officially, in the US at least. It features tons of PS4 and PS5 games alongside PS3 games that are available to stream. And also you can play PS2, PS1, and PSP games. And that list is expanding currently. There's not a ton up there right now, but there's enough to be able to try out the PSP games, PS1 games, and PS2 games. But yeah, I upgraded to premium, and so far I'm actually pretty positive about this. So far, if you do the price calculation, it's actually a lot cheaper than a lot of these services. There was a solid amount of games there. I wasn't necessarily like mind blown by what I saw on there. A lot of that was pretty predictable if you pay close enough attention to what was on like PS Plus previously and the first party stuff and the third party relationships. You could predict a lot of it. However, just being completely honest with you, if you look at the PS Plus offerings as they stand right now, just quality for quality, there's actually technically more better games on this than even Game Pass currently. Because I love Game Pass, but there's a lot of BS on there. Like, there's a lot of nonsense, and it's been pretty dry lately. And so this came like at a perfect time where like they kind of threw their hat into the race, and I'm actually pretty impressed with what was on there. There's some really, really solid stuff. I tried some PS5 games, so that gave me a chance to really jump into Returnal finally. I jumped into some PS4 games, obviously through Bloodborne. I streamed a PS3 game through Infamous. This is my first time ever trying, formerly PS now PS Plus, I guess, is just part of streaming. I wanted Infamous to be my first game that I try. It was not bad. Like, it's tricky. Like, could I tell it was streaming? Yes, but I have a wired connection, and so it was about as good as I think streaming can be. And it was not bad. Like, it was fully playable. There was very, very slight latency where you could tell. I didn't have any visual issues where, like, like sometimes it can like pixelize and it's almost like a video stream. I didn't bump into any of those kind of issues. If anything, it was just a tiny little bit of amount of latency, but it's really awesome, turning on my PS5 and being able to play Infamous. It's a real shame that they don't have a more elegant solution than streaming right now. But for right now, I don't think that's bad. I'm glad I'm at least not paying out the butt to do that additionally to another service. I have that all-in-one type of experience. And even PS1 games were really solid. I played a lot of Ape Escape, and I played a lot of Siphon Filter. With Ape Escape, I was actually experiencing some really interesting graphical issues where there was like flickering happening, and I saw an interesting note where they're like, if you're playing this on a PS5, that can happen. So that's really interesting. I'm keeping my eye on. I really want to try a whole bunch more PS1 games to see if that happens in any of the others. But I can say, at least for Ape Escape 2, that happens. Siphon Filter had no issues whatsoever. It played completely fine. And then also played Jack, and that was good. I just don't like the inverted camera, and I couldn't figure out how to change it. So I was like, absolutely not. But yeah, overall, I think I'm really positive about this new PS Plus system. What do you think?
Yeah, so I was gonna wait. I was going to wait, but then I think Sony did a really cool thing when you were like at your checkout or whatever. It would, because I was gonna just buy, I think Ape Escape, a la carte, and it's like, okay, well, for $5 you can upgrade to It was like $7. It was like a weird cheap amount for like the rest of the year. I could experience the premium. Which I think is really smart of them to do. Be like, why pay $10 for Ape Escape when you can pay $7 and you get the whole catalog? I'm like, okay, why not? So I thought that was smart on them to do it that way. So I did try it out. So I tried, a couple just PS5 games, because the PS5 PS4 thing was like, it's cool. I think I downloaded Valhalla just because I was really curious to see Assassin's Creed Valhalla on a PS5. I've only played it on Xbox.
Oh yeah, me too.
There was just some weird thing where, and I think it's also really cool that that where you're talking about quality, where I think Game Pass just lost or just got, I think Assassin's Creed Origins, and the PlayStation membership has, the newest Assassin's Creed game that's getting a whole bunch of DLC still.
Oh yeah.
I think that's really cool to be included in there. So I tried that out. Again, obviously, I was more curious on these older things. I played Ape Escape. I think I really enjoyed it. I think it's weird that it's hooked up where it's Ape Escape 1, but you can download it for PS4 or PS5. 2 separate trophies list. I'm really curious why it's like that. I don't know if it's just future-proofing it to an extent. Like a day there's a PS6, they don't have to make it completely backwards. They can just do the PS5. It's a weird thing that there's 2 SKUs of it. Again, I'm sure it's just a backdoor Sony thing, just because that's how they are. But I think it runs really well. It was almost just surreal where I was like, I'm natively playing Ape Escape on my PS5, and I know it shouldn't stand out so much when we look at what we've done with backwards compatibility on Xbox, where I've just put original Xbox games into my Series X and I play them. And I know there's a trick to it, but I just think we were just so used to Sony not doing the right thing that it was almost weird to be like, yeah, here it is for, free $99 because it's part of the membership. I think it's really interesting. Obviously, I was super curious for the PS3 games. Now, I'm mixed because some of the PS3 games just aren't that interesting, but I also did want to try some of them. So I started slow. I started with a Darkstalkers game that's on there for PS3. And surprisingly, it ran very terribly. I don't know
really?
what it was. I don't know if it's just because it's a fighting game that I noticed it more. And Darkstalkers, we all know, graphically, these are sprite-based games. But then I also jumped into the Infamous game, and it played what I thought a streaming game would be. It's what I've experienced with Xbox, the xCloud, when I've streamed it to my phone and to just the console itself. So it's just again, it's not how I wish it would play. I don't know if, a day that just my internet is just acting up, I just can't play it at all. I do feel, and I don't know if it's just my area, my internet, per provider, it can vary. It takes a long time just to do the initial load.
Yeah, facts. Me too. And I have a wired connection, so it's just like that.
Okay, good. So it's not just me. And I looked some into it, and it's like people, the way they're like, oh, it's because it has to hit the server and find where the thing is streaming from, and I saw it, and I'm like, that's fine. That's not my problem. I'm paying for your service, Sony. You fix it. And I know there's a lot of stories come out that they're working on getting these games to run downloadable natively on them, but for now, it's okay. If you were just wanted to test some of these games out, if you wanted to full on play them, like give it all you got, and I just don't know if that's the best way to experience, but for many people, it's the only way to experience. Everyone doesn't have a PS3 that just works, and even mine that works is very finicky. But I think overall, it's a really solid service. I think it's what we expected it to be, and I think it's even better than what Sony's even talked about, because they've kept a lot of this stuff under wraps, and I think it worked in their favor, where Game Pass really likes to showboat, and then when you go on Game Pass, there is a lot of shovelware, a lot of garbage, a lot of ancient games sometimes, and PS Plus was very quiet, and they're like, well, yeah, here's this, Knockout, here's this, and like, whoa, like, you guys should have been amping some of this stuff up. You guys have some really good titles, a lot of them even almost third party, so it's really weird that it's a smart way, because people were, I guess, if you undersell it and you overachieve, it looks way better than if you reversed it. So it's really interesting. I'm curious to see more where this goes. I don't recall trying a PSP game. I don't even remember what PSP titles were available. I think I saw Loco Roco was up there, but those have been remastered for PS3, PS4, so I don't know which versions are up there. Yeah. Again, I can't recall what PSP game was up there, but to my knowledge, I don't think I played any. But
there may have been one of the Jack ones. May have been. I don't know. 100%.
Yeah, which was weird. Yeah, because I saw Jack and Daxter, but I also forgot that collection is playable natively on PS4. Those were brought over, so it's like it was like weird to pick and choose, because I clicked Jack and Daxter and like, you already own this, and I was like, I do, and I forget it's because I own that collection.
Yeah.
So it's weird. And I also like that it kind of works with your library already in a sense. So it's really cool. But I'm more interested to see these upcoming games and stuff that has been announced that just haven't been released on the list yet. So it makes really interesting. But it's super solid package for people who have PlayStation Plus. Just go look at what the difference would be for the rest of the year, depending when you buy it. I think my PlayStation subscription goes till, I think I renew in like October, November, around holiday time-ish. So again, for like $10-15, I want to say it was like an awkward 10 something. I was able to get the highest one, for at least 4 months now. So it'll be interesting to see how I feel afterwards and to see what some bigger titles come out, and I can then decide if I want to stick with premium or go down to essential or just go down to the basic. So I think the way they're doing the trial works. Obviously, it doesn't look as pretty as that dollar Game Pass thing, but in a sense, it's almost better because it's like for $20.
It's technically cheaper.
Yeah, $20 for 5-6 months, whatever you have left. If you were one of those people who were able to trick the system for years to come, they fixed their issue that was going on, so you'll be able to knock it out. For if you did that, you're solid. You're a solid way to go. But I'm really, really impressed. I'm really happy with it. If they start to get these PS3 games to be off stream and just to be downloadable, I think then you've got a really serious competitor in this space.
Yeah, I still feel like they kind of have to really figure that out. And I think the one thing that I think is going to be that major differentiator is that kind of day one in Game Pass. And I hate to like always draw that connection between PS Plus could be its own thing, Game Pass could be its own thing, but naturally there's going to be those comparisons. That day one on Game Pass thing is a tough thing to beat without at least reaching parity, and PlayStation has been abundantly clear that they are not going to do that, and they don't think it's a viable business strategy. And to be honest with you, as a huge Microsoft fan, I don't understand how that's a viable business model either, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's the only thing is when God of War 2 comes out, for example, that's not going to be on the service day one. So for anybody who has any kind of confusion about that, make it clear that is not going to be on there. It might make it on there, a year or two afterwards, but day one is just not going to happen on this service. So they're going to be very reliant on older IP and then those third-party relationships. So I would not be surprised if they link up with somebody like a Ubisoft and fill their service with something, as Microsoft has been. Microsoft has day one first party games, but their IP to choose from are so limited, so they're reliant on those third party relationships, and so they've really leaned on EA, and then we'll get on with Riot eventually, relationships with that. And I expect PlayStation to play a very similar game where they're going to be linking up with I wouldn't be surprised if you see a whole bunch of older Square titles maybe pop up at some point and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see that, and the good thing about it is competition breeds excellence, as they say sometimes, and that certainly applies here, where having that Game Pass competitor is going to be better for all of us combined, because it's going to force them to really kind of up their ante and try to provide the best experience possible. And so I'm really excited to see what that kind of looks like and who can usurp who and what relationships can be established. And as somebody who's platform agnostic like us, who will have both services, at least for now, that it's going to be an immense amount of video games that we have access to. And so I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where this goes, and to see, like you said, competition breeds excellence. I want both to go to really curate your service, but also make it so valuable that you have to have these memberships. Where with Xbox, I mean, there's been times where I've canceled my Ultimate for months at a time just because there was nothing on there. Or they announce something, and by the time it comes out, I don't even want to play it, or I purchased it. It's a mixed bag. Essentially, what they want is you to subscribe to this stuff and keep it. That's where they get their money, is that continuous stuff. So we'll have to see what really plays out with them. So we can get into the final story. On top of all this stuff, actually, I guess it was a couple minutes after our last recording, and I'm glad we didn't move any of our recording stuff 2 weeks ago. We had an Xbox Showcase. This was their E3 presence, I guess. They really emphasized the Xbox-Bethesda Showcase, part of the Summer Games Fest, and all this stuff. Now, this was a long hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
it was a long hour and a half. I thought it was a short show. It wasn't until afterwards that I realized how long it was going to be. I ended up finishing this on my way to the store because at some point I just gave up. But we got a couple different things, a couple standout things missing, but we'll also get through it. So we'll back and forth this. So I'll hit the title and then we can discuss it a little bit. So they opened the show up with I think this is the second time we've seen this, Redfall, and I don't know how they did it, but I feel less interested in Redfall now that I've seen more of it. In a world that we saw that this sort of gameplay style struggles nowadays, especially when it's not done correctly or uniquely enough. We saw this with the Back 4 Blood trying to recreate Left 4 Dead, and this seems to be kind of making that same stuff. And I know there's a bunch of nonsense going on, and there's different gameplay, vampires, different style, but the moment-to-moment gameplay did kind of just look like a weird Fortnite Back 4 Blood mix, which I didn't like. Any thoughts on Redfall?
Yeah, I'm conflicted on it. The problem is I love Arcane for real. Like I really do think they make very kind of quirky, interesting first person games. And not too long ago I was playing Deathloop, which I was actually really impressed by. Even though, like, do I think it was overhyped and kind of industry planty? Yeah, sure. But like I think overall it was like a really solid game, and I love Dishonored. And so, a new Arcane game from, I think these are the Austin guys, not the Leon guys. So these are the ones who did like Prey and stuff like that. I want to like it, but the thing is, like, the gameplay, it's less so the actual shooting and moment-to-moment combat that makes me disinterested. It's just the overall system. Like, I'm not really into survival like that, and it's just, it looks good for people who like that kind of stuff, I suppose, but it's not going to be for me. It's not really what I'm looking for from Arcane. So I'm probably going to skip this one. But again, I think this one is going to be on Game Pass. So I'm probably going to actually fire it up. So long as I can get it on Game Pass, I'll play it. I'll give it a shot. But I doubt I'm going to like it very much. I'm not really into those type of games. But I mean, it's good to hear from Arcane. I would like to see some more of them. Obviously, Dishonored 3 is mostly what I'm interested in. But I could totally see the kind of that Arcane heritage in it when they kind of, like, I forget, it was like they were like warping around and do all kind of crazy stuff with the shooting. I'm like, okay, so it's definitely an Arcane game. Like, there's no doubt about that. It's stuff like, there's always like those extra powers where you can like link people together and do all these different kind of moves. So they're actually very creative with their move sets, and so I'll give them credit for that. It's like, even if it's not for me, you can definitely still see that Arcane charm in it, but the gameplay style is totally not my thing.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, and Arcane is now through Bethesda, first party studio, so the game will be on Game Pass day
awesome.
one. So Arcane is Xbox now, so yeah, maybe I do feel like this is something like maybe we'll play like that weekend it comes out or something. If it comes out on Friday,
probably
we'll Game Pass it for the weekend, and I'll probably be over it by Monday. I'll be like, okay, I'd love to be wrong and be super hooked into it. I just, again, nothing really showed like this super deep story that's going to keep me there. I think some of the characters are cool, and I'm sure they're going to add characters. Again, maybe I'll be surprised, but again, I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of it just by seeing it. But again, through the glory of Game Pass, I'll at least play it probably for that weekend. Maybe try to get all of us sort of linked up so we can do, because it looks like it's obviously a very multiplayer heavy. I know they talk that you can play it single player, but from people who went hands on, they say it's really off-putting single player. But we'll have to see.
All right.
Something I'm actually tired of seeing. I'm super excited for it. I'm tired of seeing it and not just being released. Hollow Knight Silksong was at the Xbox conference. It's really weird because I think it was announced at a Nintendo Direct, or I think it was like announced on a Kickstarter, then shown at a Nintendo Direct. I think it was at a State of Play once, and now it's also here. It's super weird. The only, I guess, sort of saving grace is that this whole showcase was supposed to be showing games that are coming out within a year to a year and a half. So I guess that means finally Silksong will be releasing. Again, it's just something I keep seeing so constantly. It's sort of like the Cuphead DLC, where it was just constantly around and just never releasing, even though it looked done. But it looks really cool. I did like Hollow Knight a lot. Again, that game got to the point where I could not beat it because I lost track of where I was going because of how open-ended it is, even though it's Metroidvania, but it's more sort of Souls like. But what are you thinking for Hollow Knight? Silksong.
Yeah, for me, it's just I just want to play it at this point. I loved Hollow Knight. I'm not very good at it, so I would imagine I'm probably going to get pretty destroyed on this one as well. But yeah, I'm really excited to jump into it. But yeah, for me, it's like, okay, I've seen more than enough. It's obviously, from just an aesthetic standpoint, very similar to the first one. I love the character design of the main protagonist, but yeah, at this point, it's like I really don't need to see anything any about this anymore. I don't need to be sold out on this. For anybody who's played Hollow Knight, you know pretty much what to expect from this one. You're going to get more of such a great experience. So let's just release the game and let's take it from there. But yeah, I'm kind of tired of seeing it too.
Yeah, again, it's I almost feel like they're doing too much harm. Why you keep showing it? Because I'm at the point where it's like, I've noticed these bosses, I've seen this stuff. It's like you're kind of taking away the mystery of it, which is the boss fights, the enemy encounters, and the stages. So you keep showing us all, then there won't be nothing for me to play on there. The next one from Squanch Games, High on Life. These are the Rick and Morty guys, the creators. They have their their game studio, Squanch Games, that they work with. And they've made a couple games. I know they did that VR game. They did the Rick and Morty VR game. They did another VR game, which I can't... I always forget the name, but it's like a weird one that you could play in VR and not VR. I think, again, this looks ridiculous. This is the the talking alien gun game. Really interesting. A lot of familiar voices, obviously. A lot of them done by the guys who do the Rick and Morty different characters, which a lot of them share stuff. It's really interesting, though. I mean, to see a first-person shooter with all the way they do their jokes, the guns, the grenades, all the tools, everything interacting with you. Obviously, there's always a line where games will get too comedy to me, where it's just like I don't even want to play it anymore. I think this having solid, not maybe solid, more unique, interesting gun mechanics, I think will help me sort of get through the game. Definitely something I probably will try, because I think everything they showed was coming to Game Pass at some point or day one. Something I would probably try and then probably even purchase and play on my Steam Deck or something like that. But I think it's funny. I think it has a weird art style. It looks really interesting. The worlds look definitely unique. A lot of stuff, again, just ripped out of that Rick and Morty. There is that sort of comedy style that these guys have, that you see in all their projects, like Solar Opposites and stuff on Hulu. And it's more of that stuff. So if you're a fan of that stuff, I don't see why this would be, something you're against. I think it looks really cool. I'm actually really excited to play this just because it's so off the wall. And there's moments where it looks very fast paced, very not Doom style, but in that vein where it's chaotic, jumping around, bombs, melees. I think it's really cool. What are you thinking for High on Life?
Yeah, I'm actually super sold on it. Obviously, it has that very familiar sense of humor that all their previous games and Rick and Morty and all that has. And so hearing Justin Roiland's voice, I was like, I like how he just puts that voice onto like all these different characters. Like, he doesn't even change it, and it's funny. But yeah, no, overall, I'm definitely looking forward to this. I was actually surprised about how good it looked. Not just yes, it has a crazy art style, but like the scale of it, I'm like, this game actually looks pretty legit. Some of the combat and stuff like that, like really well made. So shout out to them at Squanch Games, like talented guys over there. And so yeah, I'm really excited to play this. I haven't played any of their previous games actually. I've only just consumed media from their minds. So like I've watched the hell out of Rick and Morty, but I've never played any Squanch Games video games anymore before. So this is going to be my first one. And I'm excited to jump into it, and I'm assuming I'm probably going to like it, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't remember if they gave a date, but hopefully it's soonish. Riot Games and Xbox have a little collaboration now. It's weird because at first I thought some of these Riot games were coming to Xbox. There's been a lot of rumor that Valorant was coming to it and different things like that. So it's more of a just sort of all the perks you can get on Xbox Game Pass, which is a lot of times it's skins like for Halo, or it's like 3 months of Hulu with no ads, or Spotify and all that kind of stuff. I think this is a very significant one because through Xbox Game Pass you will get for the main League of Legends game, you're gonna get all your heroes unlocked, which is huge. That's actually a really huge thing because that's a big moneymaker for them, is the sort of microtransaction to buy the heroes. And for Valorant as well, I think you get a bunch of perks, a lot of suits. I don't know if it was all the characters and shooters as well in Valorant. Then you have some of their mobile aspects, which is League of Legends Wild Rift, which is their sort of mobile port, but doesn't transfer everything over. I think you're getting all the characters, skins, exclusive skins for that. Legends of Runeterra and Team Fight Tactics. One is a tactics game, one's a card game. I play all this stuff because I'm a loser. So I'm excited because this is gonna save me so much stuff that I'm gonna be able to explore some heroes and all these different things that I haven't, because I don't I don't want to pay the microtransactions and all this stuff. You can grind some of this stuff, but mainly it's all microtransactions. The fact that they're just gonna give it to me through Xbox, I think, is really, really cool. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think this is actually pretty cool. Again, it's probably not for me. I don't really play any of these games, actually. But I think this is going to be an insane draw for them. Yeah, when I heard like all the different characters for League, I'm like, that's insane, because there's a ton. So this is going to be a very significant draw for people on the PC side of Xbox's kind of like ecosystem. And so, yeah, I think this is a major relationship. This is actually, when I was watching, I'm like, this I can totally see being one of the bigger moneymakers of any of their. And this is not even an acquisition. This is kind of just a partnership. I think this partnership has potential to be profitable in a different way, even compared to some of their acquisitions of like, the Bethesdas and the Activisions. I think this is kind of a whole different ball game because they're printing money over there at Riot. So, this is a really big deal. It's not something I'm probably going to particularly utilize, but yeah, good on them.
Yeah, and I'm assuming they're gonna really hope that people jump into it. People are like, hey, if you jump into this game, you're gonna have all characters right off the rip. Stuff that people have paid a lot of money, spent a lot of hours getting. So sucks for those people, but good for the people who've always kind of waited and stuff. We finally got to another look at, or I think it's our first look, or at least a gameplay look, Forza Motorsport, this is technically the 8th Motorsport game, but they kept referring to it just as Forza Motorsport. I think they're gonna go probably the more platform version of it, because I don't think they ever called it Motorsport 8 to my knowledge. They just kept calling it the next Forza Motorsport. You and I, obviously, we're both more Forza Horizon fans. We like the more speed, open world, sort of arcadey feel of it. But for those who are really into the more simulator version of it, obviously this is more for them. You're looking at tracks and stuff like that. Obviously the game looks really great. It looks obviously fantastic. It's one of those things that maybe I'll try out just because it is on Game Pass, just because I want to see my Series X always to the max. I like when it gets to that point. I don't think there's a date confirmed. I know they said sometime next year, which that's good because it gives Horizon some more space to breathe. But yeah, I know you have an appreciation for motorsport, and you're kind of like me, you appreciate it, but it's more just sort of a technical benchmark for us, not the sim, not for like, it's more for the sim guys.
Yeah, for me, the motorsport kind of goes into the same bucket as like Gran Turismo for me, where it's cool for like the car heads, but I like the open environments and off-roading and crazy effects. But yeah, I'm gonna download this because just like you, I still am trying to see things that really push this next-gen hardware, and I want, from what I've heard, that people have said that this game looks like insane, and a lot of the times when it comes to kind of like graphical fidelity and environmental realness and different effects and stuff like that, racing games are often at the front of that. They've kind of always have been. Like, even if you go to like the previous generations on PS1, PS2, PS3, you were bumping into the same thing where like they were always kind of at the forefront of kind of technological innovation in terms of just visuals fidelity on consoles. So I'm really excited to see kind of what Motorsport looks like and what they can do on these new pieces of hardware. Yeah, when you're on that track, and I'll probably give it a spin. But yeah, I'm probably not going to play a ton of this. The great thing about Game Pass is, yeah, you can download it, try it out, and then move on. And it's not like you wasted any money or anything like that. And unlike a Gran Turismo, sorry about that, man. But
yeah. Luckily, it doesn't have to just sit there. But a couple other things were announced. Microsoft Flight Simulator 40th anniversary. I was very confused about this because Microsoft Flight Simulator is already on PC and Xbox, but I guess they're doing some anniversary, things, special planes, special locations. They're updating things. I think the bigger thing they were pushing is the Halo collab. I think it's really interesting, but you'll be able to play a lot of the gliders and copters. The Pelican from Halo comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's already there, so you'll be able to fly it. A couple Halo themed things. It's weird because it's like so out of place. Like, it looks really cool, but the Pelican doesn't belong in such a hyper realistic sort of Earth. So it's really awkward. But and I'm not into the Microsoft Flight Simulator. I tried it. It's so sim where there's not any.
Yeah.
There's no game in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I know I shouldn't expect that, but I did download it to try it. Because why put it on Xbox if you're not gonna at least? There's nothing to do if you don't just want to legit pretend you're flying a plane. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, Flight Simulator, it's like I've had some fun with it, but yeah, it is. You're flying a plane. You're a pilot. There's no challenges. You're not flipping through nothing. Like, no, you're flying a plane. And so from that perspective, it's just incredibly hard to do. Like, it's a very intense game. Like, you need to learn all these different systems, and I'm not really trying to do all that. I love when I'm in the sky and flying and just looking at the environments. Like, I love that kind of stuff. It's relaxing. As someone who loves simulator games, like all these different truck simulators, and I was just playing one the other day, Euro Truck Simulator on my Steam Deck. Yeah, it's a little bit intense for me. And the Halo collab is cool. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, Microsoft owning all of that. I saw it. It looked like they were in space. Like, that I'm curious about. Was that just for marketing materials? Because, it's a space thing? Or can you actually fly in space now? Because that completely changes, Flight Simulator at that point, if you could leave Earth. So, I'm curious. Did they say anything about that? Or did I miss something?
I don't know. All I saw, they're like, oh, you'll be able to drive the USNC Pelican. I don't know to what extent. I don't know if you can fly that high in the game or not. I did see that part though, where it's like in space.
Yeah, right. It's weird. Maybe that's just for marketing. I
don't know if it's just marketing. It'd be cool if maybe just specifically the Pelican can do that, to an extent, and then you can sort of dive down. That I would not know. Next up on the list, a weird one. The chat was going crazy when this came out. So Overwatch 2 was shown there. We got a new look at the newest queen, which is a character I thought that was already in the game. It's weird to say generic, but generic in the Overwatch style, where I swear this character was in it. But you have the Junker Queen. But you also see that you have Overwatch 2 going to early access October 4th. Though this was at the conference and everything, we already know that Overwatch is coming to PlayStation, and they confirmed it afterwards. A lot of weird stuff. I think the bigger thing, and it's something that they're doing to sort of save themselves because of how much, not only stuff that Blizzard's going through, but Overwatch 2 was always getting sort of nonsense for, is that it is going to free-to-play model. Abandoning loot boxes, going to free-to-play, it's probably going to focus on Battle Pass. I think they even confirmed that. It's weird because Overwatch is in its own thing. At this conference, it was cool to see some of this stuff. I was not interested at all until they came out where they're like, yeah, it's going to be free to play. Now I'm slightly interested. It's weird that it's just going to be this, I don't know, it's just so weird. I'm more curious to see what perks that Xbox is going to give you for doing this. Now that Blizzard is, Activision Blizzard is in-house now. So it's going to be really interesting to see. It's just so awkward. It's something that I'll give a shot. It unfortunately does look like more Overwatch in every sense of the word, in every format. They show a lot of the multiplayer stuff, none of the PvE stuff, which is the stuff I'd probably be more interested in. But I have a mixed relationship with Overwatch, where I got super into it for a while, then I didn't. Then me and a couple friends and my wife were all super into it, and then we just got out of it. So maybe we could get back into it. I don't know. It's just such a weird thing. How are you feeling on Overwatch?
I think Overwatch 2 is dumb, to be honest with you. It's just dumb altogether. Just because I can barely tell the difference between this one and what little changes they've made. It's like, I don't know. You roll out, they're like, oh, we have this new character design for Tracer, and it's like, but in a game that's completely reliant on skins, what is a redesign? How is that just not a new skin? Oh, you're playing in the same maps. Oh, with the same characters. So we got some new characters. Oh, so you got new characters, same maps, damn near same UI, same systems. We add a little PvE. This is DLC then. And I don't forget that they rolled this out for one reason. They announced this that early for one reason, and that was because of all the Hong Kong protest stuff. That's all. That's the only reason they revealed this. So I don't know. Nah, I don't dislike Overwatch overall. I just think that this whole idea of Overwatch 2 is dumb, because when I think of like these kind of like online multiplayer games that have gone into sequels, I'm going into Destiny 2, Division 2, that had made a significant improvement in effort to differentiate themselves from the first. So there's a real reason that, hey, if you're playing Division 1 or you're playing Destiny 1, there's a real incentive and reason to go to the second game. Maybe there wasn't at launch, but it was obvious very early that they were making an effort to do something different and add a whole bunch of new things and create a new experience. Where Overwatch 2 is barely an expansion on what they've done in the first one. And again, Overwatch 1 came out in 2015. So we're talking 7 years later, and it looks damn near a carbon copy of what I played in 2015. Yeah, no thanks. I'm good. And I don't like Activision, which if anybody had any doubts about. So yeah, no, I'm cool.
Yeah. And it's weird. They are in such a weird spot because they've just confirmed, and it's off topic, but they just confirmed that Overwatch 2 will be replacing Overwatch 1, which is something they said wasn't going to happen.
That's interesting.
But again, that was before they were going to go to the free-to-play model. So it's I don't know. It's what a weird world.
Yeah, it's just a weird game, man.
Yeah. A couple DLC things were announced. Nothing crazy. I know they showed some Forza, some Fallout stuff, some Elder Scrolls Online. But the next thing that was re-revealed or shown again, Ark 2. This is the sequel to Ark Survival, which I have not played. They did give it away that day, or during that week. They gave it away for free on Steam, so I do have it. I haven't played it. I'm not super into it. There's nothing for me. I don't want to see Vin Diesel in a game fighting weird dinosaurs. I don't know. Maybe I'll try Ark and like it, and then maybe be more excited to see stuff in the sequel. But they secretly, or I guess more quietly, delayed it, because that was just announced for 2022. We saw at the end of the stinger that it was for 2023 now. But are you going to be playing as Vin Diesel?
Very likely no. Unless I see some stuff about it that are like, oh man, that game actually looks really cool. I'm not into survival like that. I didn't really. It's not that I dislike the first one. It's just not a gameplay style that even remotely entertains me. Like I think it's grindy as hell. I don't like that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm assuming that this is going to be in the same vein as that. And so I'm cool. And yeah, Vin Diesel doesn't get me out of bed to jump into Ark 2. No offense to him, but
yeah, super. I don't even have anything else to say.
There's not much to say.
But then the next game, is a game that we've been seeing for a while, and I remember it specifically because I think it was shown at that Xbox gameplay stream that didn't have any gameplay. I can't recall if that's the first time we saw it, but we're looking at Scorn again, the H.R. Geiger-inspired world. It's that weird sort of organ, bloody... body horror, yeah. Super just weird game. But this is not from a first party that I recall, but I do believe now it is coming to Game Pass, which is, I'm glad, because I don't want to buy this game because I don't know what it is. It does look like one of these just sort of Unreal projects. It's very suggestive, is what I'll say, and I know that's what a lot of people run with. I just don't know. It looks so unsettling. It just... Also, I don't like how everything just looks one tone. I just don't know. I don't know. That's one of the things that I'm definitely going to wait for reviews, and then I'll even try it on Game Pass afterwards. It's just I don't see where this game is going. I don't understand the story because they haven't really discussed it. I don't know if they're just going for this super stylized, weird thing. Trust me, nothing looks like this, but what it looks like also does not interest me. How are you feeling on Scorn?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't have enough information, I think, to say like definitively one way or another. I think it has a very interesting look to it. Obviously, it's gross looking, very crazy body horror. Everything, it's kind of like this weird hell made out of organs and bodies, and it's crazy. But yeah, I think I need more information on actually what it looks like to like actually be playing this game. Like, I don't really know what they're trying to do with this game, and so that's like a big one where I think I just need more information about like if this is like a more atmospheric again, horror, slower paced survival or narrative game, then I'm probably actually not that interested. But if it was this like a faster shooting action thing, then yeah, maybe I could see myself getting into it, because then yeah, we'd go more into Doom territory or anything like that. But I really don't think that's what they're doing. And yeah, it doesn't look like it's for me. But yeah, I mean, I think this game has a lot of potential to be pretty well beloved if they're able to stick the landing, because it has such a unique look. So I can appreciate games that come out and I'm like, you know what, I can't necessarily point to anything that looks like that. So shout out to you.
Yeah, good on them, I guess. But and I think that's slated this year. I think it's October. So maybe it'll hit that sort of Halloween fall feel, creepy nonsense, and it'll be on Game Pass. So
might be perfect, yeah.
But I think it's like October 21st, so a week before Halloween. That's the perfect time to release something that looks like that. The next one they showed off was Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, and let me tell you, people like to come at certain, games, Sony games, that it looks super generic and just doesn't look right. This is that for Xbox. I don't know if I'm in the minority here or what it is. I've never seen something that looks so generic, so and this is not even a shot against them, so tech demo-y. Like, for everyone who's coming at Forspoken on PS5, that it looks like this weird, just sort of bunch of assets stuffed together. Congratulations, you have your version on Xbox. I almost literally thought this was Forspoken. I was super confused. It just makes no sense to me. Some of the stuff looked interesting, where she would like do the triangles and sort of fake like ziplock to it. But then you just see the sort of what I call the magnetic enemy attack, which is you're here, the Batman Arkham Asylum sort of style, and you will just slide across the map.
Oh yeah, you like snap to people,
the punch. Yeah, so the trailer was full of that. Maybe it's early gameplay, but man, this game just looked very just oof. Even if this was something that Sony was showing, I would be confused and coming at them, because they're like, oh, look at these enemies, and it's like a skeleton in a hat, and I don't know how'd you react to Flintlock?
Yeah, I would say I'm less down on it than you are. I would say when I saw it, I definitely, funnily you mentioned all that, like one of my first thoughts was like, this looks like a launch PS4 game. There's something about this, I'm like, it reminds me a lot of the early PS4 games. I'm willing to give it a shot. I would say, thank goodness this is a Game Pass game. This is probably not something I'd buy. There was some cool things about the combat where they were kind of alternating between the gun or the flintlock and then their kind of other sword or whatever. And then there was some cool traversal mechanics. I think I need to see a little bit more of what they're exactly trying to do. I wasn't blown away by this game, but I can appreciate kind of a kinetic third-person action. I mean, it is kind of cool to see something third-person action coming from this side of the pond as opposed to a whole bunch of the Sony stuff. But at this point, yeah, I don't know what the scale of this is supposed to be. That's the big thing, is I don't want to judge it too harshly, because I don't know if this is like getting that crazy budget. Like if this is like a smaller title that is not trying to, do this massive, Ratchet and Clank level, Spider-Man level thing, then yeah, I might not hold them to that standard. But yeah, I don't know what Microsoft is looking at this to be. Like if they're looking for this to be like a major significant offering, I know it's not a first party game, but like that, they're kind of like having that relationship with them, kind of like, how PlayStation was with Deathloop. If that's what they're trying to do, I think they're going to need a lot more than this to get that done. Because, yeah, this is going to... Horizon Forbidden West compared to this, come on now. Like, it's not even close. But, again, I don't know what they're trying to do there. So, I won't judge them too hardly. I just need a little bit more information on this. But overall, I think I'm willing to give it a shot. Maybe I'd like it. I can totally see liking it. It does look a little dated to me, though.
Yeah, I do feel, and I try not to be so hard on it, but when I see something just so, I don't know, just not stand out-ish, it's awkward. I'll give it a shot on Game Pass, and I'd love to eat my words. I'd love to be like, no, guys, man, this game was super fun, and I'm not, even gonna be, and I hold it to its own merit. I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's compare this to every AAA game we've played. Don't need it to be that, but I just also can't have it to be, I don't know. So we'll see about it. We'll we'll try it out. We'll see. Hopefully, maybe they'll do a second sort of trailer or launch trailer when it comes time. And I'm more sold on it. 'Cause some of the stuff did look cool. I did like some of the. It looked like a boss battle where they were like slashing and like these purple smoke blades would come out. And having that animal creature with you might be kind of interesting. But just when you spend 30 seconds showing me fighting spiders, you're gonna lose me. And at this point of the conference, I was already being burnt out by Microsoft.
Tell me about it.
So I do wish they moved that around. Next, at least more important, they showed a bunch of stuff that was just announcements and different things like that. But the next big one that comes from now their first party, Diablo 4 was shown off, and finally we see their final class, which is the Necromancer. Which is weird because I think the Necromancer class was like DLC for Diablo 3, so obviously we expected it to be there. It'd be really interesting to see. It's coming out next year. It looks like more Diablo, which I know is good for people who want more Diablo. I haven't gone back to Diablo since I played it when it first relaunched on PS4. I want to say like 1 week, and you and I, we just kind of played a whole bunch of Diablo, and then we were like, yeah, okay, and we were over it. I think the character creator looks really interesting. It looks really awesome. Diablo is something I want to go back to replay. I was able to snag the Diablo 3 final package they've done. It was on Xbox on sale for like $10, so I did snag that. So maybe I'll try to convince someone to play. I don't know if it has online. I'll try to convince someone to play with me because there's a lot I want to like about it, and I don't want to support the mobile game at all right now. So this looks cool. It looks like more Diablo. It's going to be interesting. It's a lot of cool stuff because they said it's going to have cross play and cross progression on different things. So I think that's really, really smart. Because that way you just move your account everywhere you play, you'll have it, which would be really exciting to do because it's just how some of these games, a game like this just works that way, where you'll be able to just kind of pick your save up, and everywhere anyone plays, you'll be able to play it. And though it's it's so far in development, so obviously it's coming to PS5, PS4, the Xbox consoles, Switch and PC. So it's gonna be exciting in times, and I think it'll be great. I just want to brush up on Diablo 3 before I just jump into 4. What did you think of Diablo?
Yeah, I like Diablo overall. I don't know enough about it in general to be able to differentiate between this one and 3, to be honest with you. Like, if you showed me footage from 4 and be like, oh, you remember this scene from 3? I would have been like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't. I haven't played enough of it. It's been a long time. Yeah, the last time I played it in depth was not too far after we had played together for a while. I had gone back home and played a couple more hours on my own. And yeah, overall it's cool. Like, I wouldn't say I'm like a super fan of Diablo or anything like that. I fully intend on jumping into this one, but it's probably gonna be a similar bet. I'm gonna play 15-20 hours and then probably walk away from it. I'm not one of those people who feel like grinding a single character and unlocking everything there is to unlock about the games. I'm not really into all that. But yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot. Like, it seems fun enough.
Yeah, that's what I see. Maybe if it's gonna have online, so maybe if we can, again, it's one of those things. It's like, maybe if you can get that hook of, once a week we'll go in a couple hours, and then maybe. But at the same time, it is a top-down sort of button masher loot-based game, which when you mix all that together, it's not something that really, really speaks to us. But who knows? Probably the biggest announcement there that I was excited for, but it's funny because I'm excited for other people to be able to jump in. The Persona series finally coming to Xbox. I think it's long, long overdue. It's really interesting. It's exciting that they're going to be, I don't know if they're all coming to Game Pass day one. They were very weird on marketing, but at least Persona, so we know that Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 Royale, so the definitive editions of the Persona games, are coming to Xbox. I think they're all confirmed to Game Pass, and the only one that has a date right now is Persona 5. So Persona 5 Royale will be coming this year, I think October 21st, to Xbox consoles. It came out afterwards. Everyone calmed down. Everyone was freaking out. These games are coming everywhere. They're coming to Steam, and they're coming to PlayStation consoles as well. So everyone's going to be able to get their hands on these Persona games. I think it'll be really cool. I'm somewhat in the middle of a replay of Persona 5 Royal, Royal. So I don't know if that's one I'm gonna jump to replay on Steam. Definitely not on Xbox, but on Steam. I think, again, like we were talking about, there's something about Persona games on mobile that just work, that just feel better. Especially if you be able to just knock out a bunch of classes and stuff while you're out and about during your day, and then you get home, do a couple dungeons. It's interesting. I've been wanting to replay Persona 3. It's weird that they went with the portable version, not the Fez version, and there's like a whole back and forth thing about that. What's the definitive version? But at least the games are going to be able to be playable on pretty much all hardware, I think excluding Switch, unfortunately. But we have Steam Deck now, so if you really want it, it's there. I'm just more happy that everyone gets to play these games now, and Persona is going to just get even more popular, and this is all part of that sort of Persona anniversary year thing they've been doing that we assume is going to lead up to the Persona 6. I think it'll be more interesting to see if Persona 6 is multi-platform right off the rip. I would be happy with that. I don't mind that. I want everyone to be playing Persona as much as they can. So, how excited are you for the Persona series coming?
Yeah, no, I think that's really awesome. Happy for all the Xbox people. I know y'all have waited pretty patiently. And yeah, the big thing for me is just I'm getting all of these on Steam Deck, no doubt. So, like, ideally, I would have loved all 5, but if we can only get 3 through 5, that's fine. I haven't played 5, the Royal version, before, so. And I've kind of been holding out for, at some point, I was going to do it. This is a perfect opportunity for me, so I'm definitely getting that on Steam Deck, and I'm going to play through that. Because, again, I haven't played, there's a whole new character that I've never experienced before, so I'm excited to play that. And it's been a very long time since I've played 3, so I'm really excited to be able to jump into that and have it all on kind of modern hardware, too. So yeah, no, this is really awesome. I wish it wasn't so far off. It looks like we won't be able to play 3 and 5, I think, until, what did they say, next year or something like that? So it's going to be a little bit.
Yeah, 5 is this year, October 21st.
This year, okay.
And then 4 and 3 is just 2023, unfortunately.
Gotcha. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit, but overall, very excited.
Yeah, really cool. Next thing, I don't know why people were so shocked about this. We knew this was coming for a while. Microsoft and Hideo Kojima officially announced their partnership. Nothing was shown. I think the verbiage is really weird. I know Hideo is just, this is how Kojima is, where he's like, this is a project I want. He kept trying not to refer to it as a game, but then he does at the end. Just really saying that he was really impressed with the cloud-based stuff. So Hideo Kojima is working with Xbox on something. Really interested to see. I think people were very nervous about this, which is why I think the next day they tweeted out, or at least Kojima Productions tweeted out, how they were still super happy with their partnership with Sony. We know there's that whole sort of I forgot what that game, not Overrun. There's that whole rumor of that other PlayStation exclusive game coming first before this Xbox game. Oh yeah, Abandoned, or no, something like that. I forget. No, over something. There's that big leaker on
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Overburnt, and I think Bloomberg or someone else ran with the story. So there is this other mystery, and the fact that they didn't show that here means that game is still somewhere in development. So we do have something. As Kojima is not a first-party studio for either, and I think that's the perfect sweet spot for him. I think that's exactly where I would want him, making some games here, making some games there. For us, it doesn't matter because we're kind of everywhere. I'm just curious to what it is. He emphasized so much on the experience, and this is a game I've always wanted to make, and there's stuff I can do on the cloud, and being able to access the game everywhere. I feel like it's probably going to be more of a micromanaging type deal, something he wants you to check in every couple hours on your, xCloud. I already see the bad stuff, like, oh, at this time you got to, check on xCloud through your phone specifically to get this feature. Then the next day you can jump on the Xbox and you can hatch this, and I just don't want that. I like Kojima, I like his weird storytelling, his weird access. There is stuff that I don't, there's stuff I didn't like about Death Stranding. I didn't think there was a need to pull over so you can pee and then take the mushroom. There's stuff that I'm like, you don't need to do this. But he really does feel his viewership and his mind is there. So it is what it is. I will obviously check out whatever it is. What did you think?
Yeah, no, this is an awesome get for Xbox. Yeah, I thought it was awesome, but I wasn't necessarily surprised. At no point was Kojima Productions ever labeled as a first-party studio over there at Sony.
Yeah.
When you are a peak creative like Kojima and so well respected in the game industry, you can go where you want. So like, I don't really think this is going to have any bearing on his ability to work with Sony going forward. And I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups to what he did with Death Stranding. I'm not saying it's going to be Death Stranding 2, but certainly I think it's going to be one of many projects that he probably does over there on the PlayStation side, and he's going to have something over here on Xbox. And I think that's really cool that he's willing to kind of play ball with multiple people, and I'm excited to see what he jumps into next. I think we're maybe on the precipice of a really, really weird marketing campaign that's probably going to start in the next couple of years as this new game comes out, because you know how Kojima is. So I think this is the most normal announcement we're probably going to get from him in quite a while, because everything we're going to get from here on is going to be really weird. I remember when all the rumors about like Death Stranding was coming out, and I was just hearing all these things. Like his games don't make sense until you play them, and then even then sometimes they don't make sense. So yeah, no, I'm really, really excited about this. I loved Death Stranding, so I'm really excited to. And short of like maybe one or two of his games, which is not that I don't like them, I just don't have a lot of experience of them, like Zone of the Enders and stuff like that. I like pretty much everything he puts out, so I'm excited to jump into this, and I have no doubt that whatever he's going to output there is going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, he still has this other project, Overdose, which we know exists because Kojima Productions tweeted for them to break down that Overdose story, which confirms that it is somewhat true with a bunch of different things. But we'll see. Hideo Kojima's just always around and always got some nonsense going on. And then to close the show off, the end of it, Xbox finally showed us some in-depth Starfield stuff. And, they showed some combat, they showed, I guess you can say story, but it was just a lot of people talking to the camera really awkwardly in the Bethesda status. I was excited and not excited. There's a lot, I'm very mixed on Starfield, where you can see a lot of their formula is still there. The super static, face-to-face conversation. Your character will not have a voice, so you will just click the thing and the person will automatically respond to it. I think some of the stuff looks really cool. It's funny, before it became a meme, as I was watching this, I was like, wow, this does look a lot like No Man's Sky. I think there's a lot of mechanics that are strikingly similar. And there's a lot of No Man's Sky stuff that didn't speak to me, that I see that same mechanic, and I have no problem with that mechanic also being in Starfield. It shows that I don't want to play that part of Starfield, so I'm curious on how that is. The gunplay doesn't look really solid. It does look very Bethesda. It looks just sort of dated Bethesda. And some of the stuff I was more excited about, which was a lot of the ship-based stuff, which was like building the ship and some of the space battles and flying, your ship to different planets. Some of that stuff has kind of been retracted and clarified, where you can't fly your ship from like space to Earth and land it. The dogfighting is apparently a little more somewhat scripted. It's weird. We're in a weird area about that, but it's one of those things that, of course, when Starfield comes out, I will be playing it on Game Pass. I just wish I saw something where I was more excited, where I saw Starfield and it looked like just a Bethesda game, unfortunately, and that's really good and that's really bad in some aspects. So I feel very middle base for it. So how were you feeling on Starfield?
Yeah, I would say I'm conflicted about it. There's a lot. Overall, let me start with this. I think Starfield is going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to really like it. I pretty much like a lot of what Bethesda Game Studios has put out before. I like Fallout. I like Skyrim and Elder Scrolls and all that. So I'm sure this is going to be another great entry in their long line of contributions to the game industry. But overall, I would say, yeah, I wasn't blown away by anything I saw. I would say if there was any major issue I had with it, it's actually something that a lot of other people were not talking about. A lot of people talked about the jankiness, which, again, I expected. I'm exhausted by them using this bum engine of theirs. I really wish they wouldn't. And I saw them getting a little bit of flack about the inability, to fly seamlessly from planet to surface. And, how did one guy, Sean Murray, be able to pull this off with you and all your teams and experience? You can't. I mean, I think the important thing to remember is that Sean Murray built his game around that mechanic. And so it's one thing to design a game in a certain engine around a mechanic, and then to have an existing engine and build a game and then try to retroactively fit that mechanic in. It's an entirely different thing. I'm not a game developer, so I can't tell you how to do either of those things. But I think it's important to remember that at no point was that seamless experience of going to the galaxies, going to the planets, exploring endless galaxy. That was never part of kind of Starfield's promise to us. Again, it was supposed to be Fallout in space, and judging by what that idea, that seems like what they're giving here. My issue with Starfield specifically is I feel like it lacks any sort of style, personally. When you look at a game like a Fallout, it has this weird kind of post-apocalyptic 1950s aesthetic that I think is really cool. When you look at games like The Outer Worlds, which was obviously the thing that was going to get a lot of comparisons. You know, Obsidian and Bethesda always get that 1 and 2 with the whole since the New Vegas days, pretty much. And, you know, The Outer Worlds had this really cool corporatist sci-fi aesthetic that I thought was really awesome as well. But the problem with Starfield for me is that it's just kind of space. Like, it just is what it is. And I just wish it had a little bit more of a style to it. Nothing to do with the art design or anything like that. But I just wish it had a bit more flair and style and aesthetic to it to kind of differentiate it. It's like, okay, so I see the tone that you guys are going for. If the trailer felt a little stiff to me when you heard some of the conversations and they showed the different areas and the ships, and I think there's a level of modularity to the ships and explorability of the planets and harvesting minerals and all that. That definitely reminded me a lot of No Man's Sky. But again, it's like No Man's Sky, but with none of the individuality and just kind of a straightforward kind of sci-fi aesthetic. And so I think there's going to be a lot to love about this game, but I wish that they found a way to differentiate it from a visual standpoint a little bit more. That's just a personal preference thing. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. I think they need to do everything in their power to work past that jank, because it's 2022 and there are games. You know, we're living in an era, and it's not quite there, but we're living in the era where Star Citizen is right on the periphery of being a thing. And yes, you need an insane rig for doing that, but we're starting to see what the full capabilities of futuristic exploration space games can actually look like. And if Starfield wants to compete in a real way, I think they need to figure out that jankiness, that kind of glitchiness. It doesn't fly anymore. You know what I mean? You see what CD Projekt Red went through with Cyberpunk, and obviously like Cyberpunk had a lot more issues, you know, with the crashing and everything like that. But I don't think jank flies in the same way it did once upon a time. Where in 2011 when you booted up Skyrim and your horse flew into the sky, like, it was funny. You know, it's video games, it happens, you keep moving on. These days, I don't know. And the level of polish we're seeing in these Last of Us and God of War and Halo Infinite, when I see NPCs with their heads reversed, you know, it makes me apprehensive. And that was my one of my main critiques with Bethesda is I love their games and their games are brilliantly made, but there's something about the performance of them that feels so out of time. Every time they release, I feel that way, where it's like this just feels, you know, 5, 6, 10 years too late in terms of the way this game performs. Not anything about their story, their writing, the content of the game, but always the performance is lacking. And so I'm just really hoping that they're able to close that gap, because to me, if they're able to close that gap and have an amazing running game, they're number one. Like they can damn near run it in terms of Western RPGs. But that was the difference for me personally between what happened with Skyrim and what happened with The Witcher. When we got The Witcher, we finally saw what a open world fantasy game looks like if it's not freaking broken all the time. Yeah. And so that's what I'm really hoping for Starfield, where it's like it can come out and it can work as intended. And I don't care about the seamless thing. If you need to do a load time, but everything else runs brilliantly, great, do that. I don't care about the seamless thing. I didn't even really like No Man's Sky like that. So the harvesting and all the similarities, I'm not super hot about that. So they can skip all that for me. So overall, I would say I'm positive. I'm filled with apprehension because I'm very apprehensive about everything they do over there. Not that I think it's not going to be good, but just I worry about that engine they have is so outdated and so clunky. Yep. And so I feel like they're in a similar situation to almost what Telltale was in Once Upon a Time, where it's like there's no amount of story you can write that can write your way through the poor performance of this engine. It's the same situation. And so I'm just hoping that they figure something out. And I know from what they said previously some time ago that there were significant kind of upgrades to this engine made. So it's not, I don't think it's a fundamentally different engine, but it should run better, imaginably, than Fallout 4. So fingers crossed. I have high hopes for them. I don't think they're going to put out anything that at least on some level is going to be hitting their standard of quality, which as of right now is incredibly high. So I don't think we have too much to be worried about, but I would like to see a little bit more individuality in it personally.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. This was time for them to sort of break their mold, and it just seems like it's more of the same mold. But if it's well done and at least it can do its own thing, there's potential. But yeah, I'm interested, but I'm worried, and I'm more worried because it is Bethesda, not that the game can't be successful. I'm more interested if they can pull it off.
Yeah, most definitely. But I'm glad that we finally saw something at the very least, like that. I think that was supposed to come out this year, if I'm not mistaken. It's late this year, right?
Oh, so it was supposed to be 11/11, yeah.
Yeah, so with that coming out this year, we're starting to hit the point where it's like, okay, we're coming up on July here, and we haven't seen anything from this game. So I was getting a little nervous where I'm like, all right, so this is obviously getting booted. But what they showed, I'm like, okay, maybe not. Maybe they're just holding the rollout a little closer to their chest, which I think is a good thing because it's... I don't like it, especially Bethesda. They're some of the worst culprits of this, of like announcing something super far ahead. Yeah. And at least they announced these things way too early, in my opinion, between Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield. Fair enough. It was way too early. But at least when it comes to actually showing things, they're not drip feeding us over the 3 years. You know what I mean? Like they kind of go quiet, they make it. And then when there's time to show something and they have something to show, they roll it all out, even if that's a little bit closer to launch. I can appreciate at least that because it would drive me nuts if we get Elder Scrolls 6 announced and that's not coming until 2025, let's say, or something crazy like that. And you get a teaser trailer or a piece of concept art every 6 months to a year. Like that, I'm like, bruh, don't say nothing if you have nothing to say. At least when they came for Starfield, they had plenty to show. They had real gameplay, real story moments, showing how traversal works, showing how combat works, showing how the different systems works. The galaxy, that's another interesting point, the whole idea of 1,000 planets, I think it said, which obviously, just from a logistical standpoint, has to have some degree of like one-time procedural generation going on. Like at some point, there had to be some kind of randomization going on. There's no way they individually designed 1,000 planets. Naturally, you're going to ask yourself, okay, like so. How big are these planets going to be? What's on them? Like, is it going to be Once Upon a Time? Yeah, no Man's Sky had like this whole promise of like an endless galaxy and stuff like that. But you go into these planets and half of them don't got nothing on it. So like, how are they going to counteract that over there at Bethesda? Because I really don't see. One thing they do good at is filling in their world. And so how are they going to fill in 1,000 worlds? I don't know. I'm curious to see. So I'm excited to see, Todd Howard, smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And so I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic for now.
Yeah, same here.
All right, so that was this week's show. We had a big one for you guys, one of our longer ones for sure. And with summer not being done, I would imagine we're probably not seeing the end of pretty significant announces, especially in the absence of E3. That means not everybody might announce at the same time anymore, and so I wouldn't be surprised if you see some people kind of coming with their own conferences and stuff. We haven't heard from Nintendo for a while, so I know they're probably gonna have some stuff coming soon. So hopefully we have some cool, fun new announcement for you guys for the next show. And so we hope you guys enjoyed the episode. So this was the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve, hope you guys enjoyed.
And we'll see you guys at the next episode. Bye.